Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jesus in a Dream podcast, where we believe with Jesus in a Dream, anything is possible, nothing is impossible, and the possibilities are endless. We want you, the listener, to enjoy life and build God's kingdom. I'm here with Zach. My name is Caleb, and today we have one of my best pals all the way from North Central University Rams, Taylor Marshall, who is awesome, and he's going to introduce himself here in a second. But Taylor is a good friend of mine. We met at North Central. He is currently doing really cool things with the Lord and with other people, and so that's why we invited him on today. But Taylor, why don't you tell us what your dream is, what you're passionate about, and why you are doing it?
I would love to do that. Thanks, Caleb, for the great introduction. Yeah, I'm honored to be here. I just want to say I love my mountain, support my mountain, the vision. I remember we sat in a coffee shop. I don't know how long that would have been, how long ago that would have been. Is that like 4 years, maybe 3 years?
I don't know. We've sat in a coffee shop.
We've done that a lot of times. But when you first told me and another friend of ours about here's what I'm dreaming up.
Who was the other friend?
Kyle Doris.
Oh, yeah.
It was you, me, and Kyle.
I remember that.
And we were talking about, here's the vision that I have for my mountain. And we were both like, I'm sold. Sign me up. And I remember a couple of things from that specifically. But I love this Jesus in a Dream podcast and the concept and everything. So I'm honored that you guys have me. So my name's Taylor Marshall. I do music and do music for a living. Grew up in Long Island, New York. I've been in Minneapolis for the last 8 years. Just bought a little townhouse, which is fun. Settling here in Minneapolis, and I do a few things. So I teach music lessons. I travel around the country, and I lead worship on Sunday mornings at churches, and I do youth conferences and conventions and camps, retreats, stuff like that. And that's and then I release worship music as well. So that's kind of the worship side of what I do. And then there's kind of a pop music side where I release pop music. I travel around, I do concerts and shows, and got some fun stuff coming up. We can talk about later, but, and do school assemblies where we're going to do an event, a school assembly in a public school. And we don't talk about our faith, but we just do fun pop music. So that's a fun expression of my pop music. And then someone kind of comes in and speaks to the kids. And a couple festivals and stuff like that as well. So basically kind of what I mean by all that is I feel called to do music, but to have a foot in the worship world and a foot in the pop world. And I've had a lot of grief over that. And I remember being really afraid growing up as a Christian, a PK, and a worship leader. I was afraid to do pop stuff. And there was a process that I walked through that kind of walking out of that fear and into the you gotta save your tea over there.
For those of you on Spotify who aren't watching on YouTube, we have a cat named Arthur. He's in all of our podcasts, and he's always causing trouble. So sorry about that.
Over Caleb's tea. Anyways, there was walking out of that fear and figuring out what to do about it. So walking into the confidence to do both. I feel called to do both, and I've kind of journeyed through that, and it's really cool seeing the connections and opportunities the Lord has developed on the pop side as I've ventured out the last 2 years into some more pop stuff. And in some ways, it feels like I'm doing more pop than worship in some things. So I'm releasing a song a month this year, which is a big undertaking I took. So in January of 2022 here, I started releasing one song every month. And realistically, it's going to turn into 10, I think. I took July off, and I think I'm taking September off. I'm really excited about the song this month, and it's kind of whatever inspires me. So some of it's pop, some of it's more faith-based singer-songwriter, and some of it's actual worship music that I lead worship in churches. And probably the last thing, or the last two things that I do I haven't mentioned yet, is I actually will create digital worship videos for churches that don't have a worship leader, and I'll send it to them, and they'll play it on their screen. And it's I'm virtually leading worship, but pre-recorded. And so that's kind of been a blooming ministry as well that I'm really excited to have and to offer small churches. And then I also host a podcast with my dad called the Worship is Life podcast. So keeping busy doing music stuff and feel really blessed to be able to do what I do.
Awesome. So
amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, Zach's here. He hasn't even talked yet. Say something for the people, Zach.
I'm excited for our conversation today.
That's right.
Yes, sir. All right. So Taylor is, like I said, he's one of my best pals. We've been friends for several years now. I've actually been able to be a part of Taylor's journey from the beginning of, emerging as a worship leader and then taking the leap into the pop music side of things. And music matters, and we're not going to get too much into that today because we have listeners from all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of passions. And what we really want to dive into today is something that can apply to all people, no matter what your age, no matter what your walk with the Lord, no matter what stage of the journey you are in with your dream. And that is friendship, the issue of friendship, and believing that there's that classic old saying, like, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Right. And we really believe that. I think that's a very biblical thing. It's a very God design thing. And Taylor is one of those people that does friendship above average, in an above average way. I've seen it manifest. I've seen how he's a friend to me, who he surrounds himself with and his family. But today, more than community is a very church word. It's something that I think is obviously very important, but within a community, you have different types of roles. You have mothers, fathers, grandparents, mentors, bosses, followers, leaders, all those things make up a community. And my definition for a community is just be a group of people that meets each other's needs. But today we want to talk about specifically why it matters that you have friends, why it matters that you have good friends, and why it matters that you are a good friend. And so we'll all be joining in on this conversation, but we're going to kind of let Taylor talk about his journey and his experience in launching out and pursuing music, and why it's important that he has people that he calls his friends around him to support him. And hopefully this will inspire you. And we're going to get into some things that are just like super just basic, but then also some biblical principles, I believe. And so Taylor, I think I was one of the early people that you came to when you were on staff at a church, and you were saying, you know what, like I think it's time I'm going to take this leap. And we got to have just a really good conversation about because I had done, like, our stories were similar up until that point. Or like both working at a church, both felt this calling, both felt like God was asking us to step away from the church and go and do something different. I remember that conversation. I don't know what it was like for you, but I know for me is a pivotal point even in my own journey of continuing forward in MyMountain. Can you just talk, I guess, about who are the kind of people? And I know I just introduced it as like I am one of those people, but not like
it's all
no. But like, who are the type of people that make you feel safe about sharing your dream with? Like, what are some of their qualities? What do you look for? And maybe also, I guess, hand in hand with that, how do you set yourself up in other people's lives to be that person?
Yeah, wow, that's a good question. Friendship. That's such a good question. I feel like, man, obviously I've talked about already how I'm passionate about music. I feel like people, though, it's like I'm borderline more passionate about people than about music. And when those two things meet, it's like the best thing ever. And so I'm really blessed to like have a lot of my good friends also do music, and we'll do music together. And that's just like such a blast. One of my favorite things probably to do, like if you're asking like what do you like to do, one of the things I'll say is like, man, my friends showing me their new music is like so much fun for me. Or if I'm showing a friend of mine a new song, like we went on a road trip months ago and I showed you a new song I was working on, and I remember like, can you play that again? I was like, yes, that's such a good sign. Like showing friends my music is one of my favorite things to do. And so, man, sharing like your dreams with people is kind of scary. And sometimes I like think about it first. Like, do I want to share this with people, or do I want to kind of hold it close to the chest? And I can tend to be a pretty open book and like overshare. I can tend to overshare. So yeah, I think just being passionate about whatever I'm working on with music or whatever's going on in my life, because like I love people and I love friendships and I'm really extroverted, like to be with people. When I'm with somebody and we're just talking about life, like those things kind of just bubble out of me naturally. And so I've usually leaned into just kind of sharing what I'm pumped about with the people that I'm around. Like if we were to sit down and grab coffee, like it would just probably come out because I know like I can trust you. So I guess characteristics you're looking for is like somebody that that like you can trust, right? And I for sure have had moments where I've shared something and it gets kind of shot down, and that can be tough. And so it's like I think knowing that a friend has got your back and is in your corner is something good to look for, because if I have an idea or a dream and I'm unsure about it, I don't want to just walk up to my biggest critic and say, what do you think about this? Because I might walk away discouraged from that moment. But if I share it with a friend who I know is in my corner and is like just pumped for me, or like a family member, then it's like, oh, I'm actually gonna I'm bouncing this off you because I'm unsure of it, but I know you're a safe space for that. And then as I walk away from that, there's an encouragement or whatever they have to bounce off. And honestly, usually in those conversations, there's something that I was missing that I needed to hear that either helped encourage me why it was a good idea, or maybe I'm 1 degree off, or there's another idea. And I think the beauty of collaboration with that kind of stuff, because it's really easy, I think, to, especially for me, I do a lot of things. Like I play a couple different instruments, I can produce. So it's like I can like to hold it to the chest and do projects all on my own or do life alone. But the beauty in collaboration is like you start to see fruit that you wouldn't have seen if you held it close to the chest. So yeah, I think there's definitely a power in sharing that with people, but just making sure it's somebody that you can trust. I don't know. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so what got brought to my mind when you were talking about that is, again, I think the friend relationship is part of God's design,
right.
and he has given us people that we call friends. And Jesus actually comments on this at one point. He says, I now call you my friend because I tell you what I'm about to do. You're no longer slaves or servants, where it's just like, I give you the command, but you're friends because I have confidence in you. Basically, you can be a confidant of mine. And I really think that is what defines the friend relationship is are there people in your life that you can share what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you're hoping for to happen, and they receive it in a way that you would want to do it again? I think that is just like the most basic part of being a friend. And then that's what God does to us in prayer. And I believe there are levels of relationships with God where if you say you believe in God, like you're in, like he creates a relationship with you, but then you can move into intimacy with him, where like the disciples were walking. That was one of the last things Jesus said to his disciples, like later in his ministry, is now I call you my friends. Yeah. And it took time to develop that friendship. And so I think that is something that, you know, for us three, we're all very similar in our personalities, where we're visionaries, we're dreamers, and they're like a dime a dozen for us. So it's like if one gets like shut down, it's okay because we have like 10 more or like whatever. But for some people, it's like, man, you hold something so tightly, and it's like for you to share something with somebody, it would be a big deal, which is fine. And that is how God created you. And that's where I would say, like, for you, don't be sharing it with every, you know, person that comes along, because not everybody is a friend, like in that sense, where they are going to believe in you and believe in your relationship with the Lord, and they might be quicker to offer their opinion than their support. And I think that is something that, like, true friends like do take time, like to develop a relationship with. And I don't think that's something that can be rushed. And like Ben Rector, like you're one of your favorite influences, like he has a song called Old Friends. Like you can't make old friends, and there's a difference between old friends and new friends. And I think you can click with new people very quickly and feel that comfortability and all of that stuff. But I think, you know, time in a relationship is something that should be valued, and something that should be a goal of most relationships. Is like, man, I want you to be in my life for years to come. And I think that's something for all of us, where it's like we all have those friends where it's like, I cannot talk to you for 5 years, but in 5 years, if we came back, like we've developed that like intimacy in that relationship and stuff. And I know we're kind of going down a rabbit trail, but I guess, do you have anything to add about like just friendship? I guess.
I was gonna say, like, when it comes to like sharing your dreams with friends, I think it's kind of like what you want to look for is like a win-win situation where, and a good friend is a win-win situation where when I'll just say, in terms of writing my novel, I've been working on it for a long time.
Let's go.
And there's one person that I will send a new chapter to, and they read it, and they go, this is awesome. I love this. I can't wait for the next chapter.
Right.
That gets me excited to write the next chapter.
Right.
They're excited to read the next chapter. And so it just goes, it's this like cycle that just generates excitement, keeps the momentum going. And then to contrast that, there was a time when I bought one of my first cameras on my own, and I was really excited, and I told a friend, and I was like, oh, I'm super excited to use this camera. And this was where it was like the danger of sharing too soon,
risk,
or
right, yeah.
because the hard part is like, if you treat, if they're a friend in your life, then what they say holds a little bit more or weight to it. And so this person said, oh, well, that'll fade, you'll get over it.
Wow.
And I was just like, I was expecting, dude, let's go shoot some photos. Let's go take some video. And it was like, and I was like, I'm so excited for this new camera. He's like, yeah, I mean, you'll get a new one later. And it just like, and in that moment, I let it rob the joy from me.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question for you is like, somebody compared, your dreams is always compared to a fire and your passions. But when you start that fire, it's tiny. You got the kindling in the match, and it's like very easy for one person to blow that match out because,
good.
not until it's a big fire, one person can be all that it needs to blow out. So I guess if you have any thoughts on like, how do you protect your own dreams when you share it with someone, and when someone, I don't want to get too negative, but like when you face that where someone's like, just, it feels like the joy just got sucked out instantly, and you're like, you know what, I don't even want to do this anymore.
Yeah. I think there's a difference between independence and isolation. And I think one of our tendencies when we're discouraged or we reach out and we feel like shut down is to isolate. And I think that is not what we want to do. I think we don't see good fruit from isolation. I think there can be good fruit from independence, but not from isolation. I think we kind of trick ourselves into thinking like, oh, then I just need to do this alone. But that's maybe actually isolation. And so, I think that's valuable. I think also it's like I actually have learned about myself. What I can do is I can go to a number of people and kind of overshare until I hear what I want to hear, and then leave with that. And so it's like, it's what I've learned from that, because that sometimes isn't the healthiest thing. But what I've learned from that is, everybody, like if I have a song that's almost done and I'm really pumped about it, I'm careful who I send it to, because if I send it to Caleb, he might have 4 critiques just as a listener and a friend of mine. But I send it to a music producer friend of mine, well, he has 4 different critiques or no critiques or 12 critiques. And it's like, okay, we all have opinions about stuff. And so I'm looking for kind of knowing what you're looking for. And I actually think letting the person know, like, hey, you're a close friend of mine, I would love for you to play this role in this situation, or this, like, I'm actually looking for a friend to encourage me in this. I would love to share with you if that's open. And then they give you encouraging feedback. Or, hey, I am looking for like critical feedback. Be honest, tear this apart. Like I remember my first album, I brought the songs to my producer, and I was getting ready to fly out there, and I had to cancel my flight the week before our album recording because he said, hey, these songs are not there yet. And he's like, I just want to be honest with you. Like, I love you and I believe in this project, but they need to be like, you need to work with other writers to get them where they need to be. This was a few years ago. And that was tough to swallow. But then what I learned was like, okay, I brought it to a professional writer and I said, hey, tear this apart. Like, I want it to be as good as it can be. And then he had permission to be honest with me. So I think knowing, like, again, the trust thing, like I can trust this person, and then even having an expectation about it, I think can be helpful to avoid some of those, because you think about it, like a good friend of yours isn't trying to crush your dreams probably, but that can happen unintentionally, and then we can start to isolate. So to avoid that process, it's like, deciding who you share certain things with. And some friends are just more like encouragers, and some friends are more like critical feedback. And I think knowing what you're looking for, and then knowing kind of who to ask, I think is a good step in that process.
I think that's huge too, of like, you don't want just the yes man all the time who's like, oh, this is great. This is great.
Doesn't feel
this
valid
is good.
if that's the case.
And then right, because you want, when you go and say, I need honest feedback,
right,
and then they're like, oh no, it's perfect in every way. You crushed it. Sometimes you want to hear that, and sometimes you're like, but be real with me. Would you listen to this?
Right, right. Yeah, and my mom is always going to say the song sounds perfect. So it's like, when I need some encouragement, I can send it to my mom. But then it's like, hey, I have a friend of mine who's a producer, and I'm talking in music terms, but this relates to whatever situation we're referring to. Hey, dude, like, I don't want to release this until you give it the thumbs up because I trust your ear. And then he'll send me a list. He's like, here's what I think. And then he'll even throw in, this is really good. And so I've learned, I've learned too, in giving that feedback to friends, it's like sometimes like a song is not where it needs to be, but there's like a vocal hook that's really cool. I'm like, dude, love the vocal hook. Intro sounds really cool. I feel like the mix needs this to happen, and I feel like I can't hear the drums enough in this. And honestly, like the tuning on the vocal here, like, but like love the love the songwriting and stuff like that, and try to bring some encouragement, but also give the valuable feedback. And sometimes people are specific. Like I was saying, I just got a text the other day, hey, please tear the song apart. Let us know what it is. And other times it's just like, hey, what do you think about this? And you can kind of gauge that too. What is this person actually? I think being a loving friend and being a trusting friend looks like, hey, what is this person looking for me? Like, are they just excited about it? And I've had to gauge that tension before where, oh, my role is actually just to be a good friend in this moment, and I might not even really love this product, but like they're just excited about it, and I have the opportunity to shut their dream down or to encourage it. And being in my role as a friend is like to encourage them in this moment, unless they're like, hey, as a musician or as a writer and author, like, what do you think could be better about this? I think it's just it's like almost two different conversations. I think in our head, it's the same conversation.
That's good. I think that's a good distinction to make. And I love what you're saying about communicating expectations before you share something. Mm-hmm. And I think that's not getting to what you want to hear, but I think we all have those people that we think of and it goes, and that you know their tendencies and you know what you want from them. And sometimes you just like, because we are friends, I want to share this with you. Like, I just want to share it with you. And I just want to have this experience where I get to listen to music, my friend's music in the car with him as we drive. That's cool. Something that I want to dive into, and we talked about this in our conversation at the coffee shop before we came to record, was just like the basics of friendship. And it's not something you think about really, but it just kind of happens. But something I know, and just in general, I guess, is when you let things just happen, sometimes you can be in a really good situation because things just happen, like it's just natural for you and you're doing it in a godly way or a biblical way or whatever. But then there's the opposite side of things where you might find yourself in a situation that just happens and it's not the most healthy that it can be, but you never know it's not healthy or not ideal because this is just like your real life. And so I'd love to take like a couple steps back and go into just like the basics of, what does it mean to be a good friend? What do healthy friendships look like? And we can put it in the frame of like with our dreams, but I think just in real life, friendship is something that is hard to navigate sometimes. And sometimes it's hard to find friends, and sometimes it's hard to find that group that you feel like you belong in, or a person that you can be open and vulnerable with that maybe that you're not related to. And something that I believe in, this is why I'm so passionate about passion and about dreams, is that to find the people that you're probably going to be the closest friends with, you should probably just go find the people that enjoy doing what you're doing. Enjoy doing what you do. You can say the same thing about dating, but that's a different conversation. But it's like you want to enjoy what you do with other people. And I think passion also gives this opportunity for there to be connections and for walls to come down very quickly. Because it's like when you and I both enjoy films, we can talk about films for hours. When you and I both enjoy music, we can talk about music for hours. When you and I enjoy X, Y, or Z, whatever it is that you're passionate about, there's other people out there that exist that are passionate about the same things. And I think one of the first things I'll say in, I guess, like the section on making friends is that like you have a responsibility to yourself to go and find friends. Like it's nobody else's responsibility to be friends with you.
That's it.
Everybody is waiting for like people. And sometimes, it does naturally happen. But if you find yourself listening to this and you're like, I don't have a lot of friends, what I would say to you is like, it's possible to have friends. Those people are out there, but it first takes this responsibility of the fact that I don't have friends. I want friends. I need to be the one to go and find friends. As a person who you have friends, I think, in a lot of different spheres. Like they're not all just like music friends.
Right.
I guess just going very basic, and you were just telling us at the coffee shop, like your friends didn't originate out of like all of them out of church or out of school, but like some of them you've just like met. Give us a little like hint, tip, or whatever to maybe somebody who's listening to this and going like, I don't even know where to begin or where to start.
For sure. Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is something my pastor said about the culture of the church that I go to that they want to just create. And he said, what does like the Father's house look like? Because we want this to feel like the Father's house. So he said, like, do you think the Father's house, when you get to heaven and you walk into, let's say God has an actual house, and when you get to heaven, you walk in, let's just say, you walk in and you sit down on the couch and look at your phone and wait for the event to start. He's like, there's no way. There's no way that's what the Father's house is. Like, he welcomes you and he's like pumped to see you. And like, there's other people there and it's the best. And so he's like, so we want that to feel like that in here. Like, we want you to feel like you have to sit down and look at your phone. And he goes, so how does that happen though? Because all of our tendency might still to be, he goes, I would love to invite you to walk into church and be the church that you want to attend. So if you want to walk in and get welcomed by somebody and meet somebody new and ask and be asked how you're doing, walk in and meet somebody new and ask them how they're doing. Like, be the person that you want to be around. And so that's my advice with the friendship. And honestly, that's what I try to do as a friend. And it just connected the dots, because I realized like that's how I have been operating as a person when I meet somebody at the mall and then we hit it off, or like it's a stranger and you just want to love on somebody, or it's a friend that I haven't seen in a while, whatever it is. It's like just deciding to be the upbeat person that's like looking at them, being a good listener, like engaging with them, like giving them your full attention. Even if it's like, oh, what about so-and-so over there? Like I had a season in my life where I had to learn to decide to stop ending conversations to go talk to somebody else that I wanted to also see, because that's like not giving that person enough value, and I want to be treated that way. So it's like a simple do unto others as you don't want to be treated. But for some reason I feel like there's like this fear and this risk of, well, if I'm just like that outgoing, I'll get like looked at differently or whatever. But I'm telling you, like, it's been one of the most rewarding, engaging things. I remember making a lot of friends in college. And I had been given the advice early on, like, just be the guy that introduces yourself to people, like get to know people's names, go for it. Another helpful hint I do is like, I feel like I'm a terrible person at names. I just feel like I'm bad at names, remembering people's names, but I decided to like not be anymore. And I was like, I feel like names actually stay in your short term. They don't get in your long term unless you intentionally force them into your long-term memory. And so I've just realized, like, when somebody remembers my name, it means a lot to me. So it means a lot to people when you remember their names, and names are significant. And so I just started like, okay, oh, what's your name? Caleb. Good to meet you, Caleb. Like, all right, Caleb. Like, just say it over, name repetition, stuff like that. And then when I see somebody again later, then there's this opportunity to shut down because I forget their name the next week or whatever, next time I see them a month later. And now I'm like embarrassed, and I've just decided to like get over that. So like, I'm so sorry, what's your name again? And just be the guy that cares enough to ask and be willing to whatever. And so I think I will say this, there are moments where I have been, there's moments where I'm trying to be myself and that extroverted, and that doesn't fly for everybody. Some people just are like not about that or whatever, and that's okay. And that's not maybe how everybody's choosing to live and choosing to be. But that might be the type of person that doesn't see like they have a lot of friends around them. And it's like, hey, I would love to be your friend or whatever. And if that's not your vibe, that's great. But I want to continue to be, that's a moment where I have an opportunity to isolate and not do all the things that I'm sharing. But it's like, nope, just because somebody wasn't vibing with that, or they kind of thought me being so outgoing or engaging was like not their thing, that doesn't mean that this is a bad method. That was just like, a unique opportunity to learn to not isolate and not get insecure about like, oh, I'm being expressive and extroverted and wanting to get to know, not even extrovert, social, just being social. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think just to give another like very practical tip is also people, if you're afraid to like start a conversation or to approach a stranger, but I would say probably most of the people who listen to this go to church. And so church is also just a really great place to maybe apply some of these very practicals. Mm-hmm. It's human nature, and this is not a bad thing. People love hearing about themselves. People might say like, oh, like, I don't know how to take a compliment or like whatever. But if you intentionally go, like, I do this all the time, and the people that I'm usually at events with, like, they're like, how do you do that? Like, and it's like, the singer at the worship night that we went to a couple weeks ago, like, never been to the church, didn't know who anybody was. They told us to meet people out in the lobby. I saw the singer who was on the stage, and I just went up to her and was like, hey, you led very well. I think you are so cool. And she's like, wow, thanks, like, all this stuff. And then we talked for 20 minutes about where she was from and, like, all of this stuff. And bringing it back maybe full circle to, like, passions, it's like people will talk to you about what they love to do.
Yeah.
Having the question in your bag, like in the back of your mind, it's like, okay, I want to make friends. I want to meet new people, but like, what do we talk about? And like, I hate small talk. Good. Don't do small talk.
Right.
Literally go up to somebody and be like, hey, like, what are you excited about? What do you enjoy doing? Like, where do you spend most of your time? Like, do you have your family? Are you dating it? Like, make them talk about themselves. And if they are a person that you want to be friends with, and it'll be indicated with, do they reciprocate it? If they don't reciprocate it, then they're probably not interested in like being your friend. They're more interested in themselves, right? So,
sure,
like, that's a generalization, but like people are looking for other people to talk to. We are looking for that human connection. I love your point of like, when we're on our phones, that destroys that opportunity for that connection.
And it's that isolation that we can kind of revert to.
Go inside of ourselves. And I was going to say one more thing when it comes to just like approaching people now. I can't remember. But yeah, like get people to talk about themselves, and they will. And hopefully they'll reciprocate that. But even if they don't, like, that's okay. Like Taylor was saying, you just love the person in front of you.
And talk about being a good friend. You're being selfless by asking them about their life. Yeah,
right.
It's good.
Yeah, I'll jump in here and say there was when we were buying our house, in that process, it was just, it's a difficult process. And somebody at church, we had just mentioned it very casually, and somebody came up weeks later and they're like, how's it going with the house process?
Yes.
How was that? Like, I've been praying for you. And that was huge to me, because I was like, oh, like, you remember. And I remember that being a small thing that we talked about. And I was like, you remembered that small detail, and that was huge. But I think another thing, just in terms of like friendship, and I think, at least for me, a lot of like, I try really hard to get my priorities in the right place. And I think that is also huge. Like you said, when you ask somebody about them, you're putting them first, being selfless. And just like in terms of priorities too, where like we were talking about this earlier with Caleb, and I was like, there was a time when people invited us over for a bonfire, and me and my wife were the only people who went, because everyone else was like, it's too hot out. And I was like, it's not about being slightly uncomfortably warm, because I mean, it's Minnesota, it gets muggy, I understand. Right. But I was like, they're offering to have us over to their house. They want us over, and I'm not going to turn that down. And I was like, if nothing else, we'll sit inside around the dining room table and chat, And so it was like, I'm not going to say that the weather and me being slightly uncomfortable is more important than our relationship. Cool. Yeah. But that's what the message was sending when you say, it's a little too warm, I'm not going to come. And I was like, so yeah, I think having the priorities of putting that person first, and thinking, if I invited a bunch of people over for a bonfire and everyone turned me down, I would be like, oh, this sucks. Like, I'm upset nobody came, And it's like,
that's good.
That Bible, there's so many stories in the Bible about the wedding feast gets used over and over. And it's like, everybody made excuses and nobody showed up. And then they do show up, and he's like, I don't know you. You're not my friends, And it's like, how did that happen? They didn't respond, and they didn't like value and put that relationship as a priority. So
that's good.
Yeah.
I think that, bringing it back to the Bible and you guys talking about putting other people first and centering the conversation on other people. Jesus talks about like the parable of the shrewd manager, and he basically said, the world knows how to use what they have to make friends better than like Christ followers do for some reason. He goes like, because they're shrewd, and this is kind of like a different take on it when it comes to relationships, but like, use what you have to make friends. Like if you are waiting for somebody to invite you over, like you were saying, like be the person who invites other people to your house.
Dude.
And if they say no, like that is okay. That does not reflect value on you,
right,
like, or anything. And there will be people who say yes. And people especially say yes. And this is something that, you know, I've had the privilege of meeting a lot of people through MyMountain. There's like rarely a place I can go in this world that I've been to recently where I do not know somebody who I know, or like know somebody that I know. And sometimes it's multiple people in the same house. Like we went to Bismarck a couple of years ago and there were multiple people at this house party that like I knew that they also knew, or like, and now all these connections or whatever. The way I would say that is like been able to happen for me is that, like, and Taylor and I have talked about this several times before, is just the concept of loving the person in front of you.
Yeah, that's it.
Is like, do they feel loved, valued, appreciated, and accepted every time that they talk to me?
Yeah, dude.
And something that we did talk about was like, because like I do know a lot of people at a lot of different functions, I think we had this conversation out loud of what you were talking about, of like, there were times where it was like, oh, I know this person, like, how much longer is this person going to talk to me?
Right.
And like the Lord convicted me and was like,
I remember that.
hey, what if this person's in front of you for a reason?
Yes.
And maybe you're the reason, like not them for you, you for them. And that has happened several times where, you know, like I would say like I'm friends with my car insurance agent now, where before she was my car insurance agent, now we're like friends because, you know, she went through like a tragedy in her life where her friend died. And like, I took the time where she was just going to skip past that. But like, I asked her questions and was able to get to that nitty gritty where she's like, and it's like, you go deeper into people's lives when you ask questions about them. And I think that's something that we all crave, is like that intimacy. And intimacy only happens, one, over time, but two, if you're having conversations that are more than about yourself or about the surface level, about what is going on currently in the moment.
I feel like I can't stress enough, like being an intentional listener will like set you apart in this world from like the rest of people in the world. Like it's funny because I brought that up kind of forgetting that was a conversation, because it's been a few years that we've had it, and now it's just been something that has been more instilled in me. But the loving the person in front of you is so huge, because it's not always somebody that like maybe on the outer appearance you would like want to love or something, or it's somebody that like a sibling that can bother you or whatever it is, like, or it's just a stranger that you met and they're just keep asking you questions and you're ready to move on. But like slowing down, it's like you get to slow down, love that person, and you get like an opportunity to see life from 30,000 feet for a second. And that's like how Jesus did. Like Jesus would get interrupted on the way to ministry, where like everyone's probably like, where's Jesus? He's late. And he's like rolls up and he's cool with it because he stopped and met somebody on the road. Something else I want to say quick too is I've seen a lot of value in being friends with people in a different age demographic than me. Like I play in a pickleball group at my church, and it's mostly like middle-aged people, and I have so much fun because it's not like my parents are going and I'm just like the kid. I'm like a part of this group and we're friends, and I'm asking about their lives and their kids, and even though their kids are my age, I'm getting to know them. And then I went over to their house for dinner, and it's just like the older couple, and we're just hanging out and having a good time. And having friends of different demographics like that have been so valuable, where it's not like I'm asking them to sign a contract to be my mentor. It's like we're just hanging out and talking about life, and I'm getting stuff from them and they're getting stuff from me, and it's been a really good balance.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, kind of to bring it full circle, what we're talking about today is having friends. It matters a lot, and you shouldn't do life alone. And you may already know that, and you might be saying, well, Caleb, it's really hard. And that's why we're doing this podcast, is like everything that we talk about on this podcast to do is hard. It doesn't make it impossible. And to put a bow on it with Jesus is, you know, one, see Jesus as your friend. You're not alone. Jesus is with you, and Jesus cares about your social life. Jesus cares about who you spend your time with, and Jesus cares about who speaks into your life and whose life you are speaking into. And if you find it hard to make friends, if you feel lonely, if you feel like maybe you do have friends, but they're not godly friends, or they're not friends that do support you in your dream and or just in your life in general, Jesus says to ask. Jesus says, abide in me, abide in my word, ask for anything that you need, and I'll give it to you. And so if you find yourself as in one of those categories where you feel lacking in healthy friendships, then I would say ask for it and pray for those opportunities. But then also when the opportunities come, like we've been talking about, you need to take the responsibility for your life and for your friendships and go, okay, the Lord has placed these people in my life. I'm going to go in his strength with his confidence and put myself out there. And that is the risk of any relationship, is putting yourself out there. But that's the only way to get to intimate relationships, and which is what we all crave. And so, Zach and Taylor are two of my closest friends, and I'm glad that we have been blessed to be able to do something like this. But we're doing this because we enjoy our friendships, but because we believe that it's possible for you listening to this as well. So, like I said, My Mountain, Jesus in a Dream podcast, we're a community, and what a community does is meet each other's needs. So I'm going to throw it to Taylor here. He's going to tell you why it will help your life if you engage with whatever he's about to tell you with. And then he's going to tell you some ways where you can help him out as well.
Amazing. Thanks, dude. So I met a couple friends at church, this married couple, and this is just a quick story that's going to make a lot of sense. They were going through an adoption process for like 3 years, and they could not get a kid. And I don't know what the whole situation was. That's all they told me. And they just came up to me. I didn't even know that, but I released a song called Watch the Rain in February. That's the one I showed you on that road trip the other day. And they just came up to me, and they're like, by the way, we love Watch the Rain. I was like, oh, I didn't know you knew that I made music. Like, just a casual friendship from church that developed from just meeting people like we've talked about. And they're like, yeah, we listen to it every day. I was like, what do you mean you listen to it every day? They're like, well, we're going through like an adoption journey, and it's really hard. And those lyrics are like what we're clinging to in this season. I was like, are you kidding me? I took a step back and teared up. I was like, are you serious? And they're like, oh yeah, that's like our anthem. I was like, I would have never known that if you would have told me that. And so I've just seen I've been really moved by stories like that of impact of what I'm just doing to process what's going on in my life and what I feel called to do and what I'm passionate about. I just get so pumped when I write a song and it all comes together. And then when you additionally have that, it's like the passion of music and people coming together. You have so man, I would just love, if you're out there, to check out my music. Taylor Marshall is what my artist name is. Taylor Marshall on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. People are like, where can I listen to your music? Well, where do you normally listen to music? Find it right there. It's going to be there under my name, and would love for you to check it out and believe that there's like a song or multiple songs in there that can relate to you and whatever it is that you're going through. If it's a hard time, if it's a relationship thing, and if you are like in listening to this and you're in leadership, or your church is struggling with like worship ministry, that's what I do. So I'd love to travel to your church, and I would love to help pour into you guys. If it's coaching your team, if it's just filling in every once in a while, you can hit me up on Instagram or my website, taylormarshall.org. And then you could also even hit me up for those digital worship videos. If you're like, we're a church and we don't have worship really, we just listen to YouTube. I would love to like become your worship leader, where I send you little digital worship videos every week, and even come out every once in a while. I do that with like 5 churches right now, where I go every once in a while to their church, but every week they're playing videos of me, and it fills a need for them. So there's that. And then the other thing I would say, if you were looking to be a part of what I'm doing, I've got a song coming out on August 26th, which I'm really pumped about. That's like 11 days away. It's coming up. It's really soon.
Tell us the name of it.
It's called Jumping In. Sweet. Nobody knows that yet.
Sweet.
First announcement right here. It's called Jumping In. And it's the new opener to my show. And what's cool is on August 26th, I'm actually opening for a festival. I'm really, really excited about it. It's up in Isle, Minnesota, which is like north of the city, is an hour and a half or so. And it's me, and then Riley Clemens, and then Tasha Layton, Jason Gray, and then Disciple on Friday, August 26th. And that's the first time we're doing the song live. The day that it comes out, be really fun. So if you're in the area, it's a free Christian music festival, and it's like Thursday through Saturday or Sunday. So check that out. It's called Rural Music Fest. And then on September 15th, I'm really pumped about this, and this is more for the local Twin Cities stuff. We're doing, Caleb, you've been to this event before. It's the 4th annual concert in the cul-de-sac. And we do it in my parents' property in their driveway, the cul-de-sac area. And we had like 150 people bring lawn chairs last year. And this year we're going to try to have a food truck and face painting and more of a block party. And it's a free event. It's my full show. We'll be doing Jumping In at that as well. And that's just so much fun. Would love to connect with you on social media, and I even have like a number that you can text to get updates from me and stuff when I release new music.
Awesome. We will include all of that in the YouTube description, all of his socials, that phone number, his website, all of that stuff. Buy a t-shirt, listen to his music. It'll change your life. I promise you that. Zach, got anything else to add?
Say the date of that block party again.
September 15th,
All right.
7 p.m. It's a Thursday night. And check social media for more information.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm gonna try and be there. That's
Hey,
awesome.
my dude.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Taylor, for being on the Jesus and a Dream podcast. We will see you all next time.